Good evening, Whisky Club members. It's Craig here, your head of whisky creation in Scotland. Welcome to our latest Ardbeg Whisky Club Live. You can probably tell from that little faux pas there exactly who we've got on the line this evening. We are here to talk all about the latest Ardbeg Day release. So we've got Gemma from the Ardbeg brand team, and we've got the committee, Ardbeg committee co-chair and Ardbeg master whisky maker, Gillian MacDonald. How are you this morning for us?
Good, thanks. A little bit chilly here today.
Excellent. And Gemma, you're in the office in Edinburgh. How's the weather there?
Do you know, actually quite nice. We're seeing some blue skies now, which is glorious. Still not warm, but blue skies. So we're on to a winner.
Fantastic. Now we have, it's a bit of I suppose, a world exclusive, another world exclusive for our members, because many of the Whisky Club members around Australia have their hands on a bottle of Ardbeg Dolce, and I know it's not out here till the 26th of May, so I'm a little bit jealous. So I think we're going to give them a world first sneak peek at the liquid with yourselves, and then we'll talk a bit about obviously Ardbeg as a brand, a distillery, a place, a pilgrimage, and then obviously walk through the whisky as well. So where do we start? I suppose we should talk about Facial, about the Isla Festival. It happens at the end of May, and it's the 40th anniversary. What does that milestone mean for yourselves and for Ardbeg?
It's a huge festival on the island annually, and the fact that it's going 40 years is just amazing. And I think it's grown dramatically over those 40 years as well. It's a music and whiskey festival. I think when it first started off, it was more music, and I think probably now it's more whiskey than music. But there's a lot of music involved. But it really is the highlight of the year, I would say, for Ardbeg and for Isla as well. I mean, it's just like, it's something we often call it our Christmas in May, June. You know, it's something that everyone sort of counts down to, gets excited. We should even do an advent calendar, I think, for the whole of May for counting down. It's another idea you can have for free, Gemma, just so we can count down to it. So yeah, it's a hugely exciting week where every distillery gets to have their sort of moment in the sun or rain, depending on how the weather is behaving. And then, yeah, many of the distilleries, like we do, offer distillery exclusives, which if you've pilgrimed all the way to Isla, you can get your hands on. And then a lot of them do bottles as well for release, which is fantastic. And Ardbeg Day is our one that we release each year. And we started doing it globally from 2012 onwards. And so we're into our 14th year of our global launches, as it were, around the world. And it's an opportunity for us as whiskey makers to show a different side of Ardbeg. But really, it's just a chance for a little bit of Isla to be transported around the globe and hopefully activated in market and enjoyed and shared by people in their own interpretation of whatever the theme is for that year. So we always have a bit of fun with it. We can maybe get into a bit of that later on.
Brilliant. Now we've got folk tuning in from all over Australia. I know that many of them will all be massive Ardbeg fans. What I want to see in the comments tonight, I want any questions that you have for Gemma and Gillian. We'd also love to hear about your stories if you ever managed to make the pilgrimage to Isla, whether for the festival or not. Let us know what you thought, when you want to go back, and we'll see if we can kind of scratch below the surface with the team here about what to expect when you arrive. On that, obviously, there's two sides. So Ardbeg Day, generally the last Saturday, right? It's the headline before everyone's a wee bit dusty on the Sunday. There is stuff happening on the Sunday as well, but I think yes, Ardbeg Day is definitely a highlight for a lot of folk that go. The two sides of Ardbeg Day, you've got the whiskey, which we will get into, but Gemma, from your side, from the brand side, what does Ardbeg Day entail outside of the liquid? Like what can folk expect when they arrive at Ardbeg on Ardbeg Day?
Sorry, guys, my internet did a little bit of a shake there. What was that question?
I was just saying, when people arrive for Ardbeg Day this year, what can they expect? What can you tell us, I suppose, in advance?
Oh, I don't think it's working at all. Our Wi-Fi in the office.
I think the people in Falkirk might have between Glasgow and
maybe it's too top secret. Thankfully, I'm in the middle of nowhere and have good internet, so I can answer that for you. Having been to many Ardbeg days, I'm actually off. I'm very excited. I'm off at the end of this month to Islay for it, which actually been Bryony and I's first one as official co-chairs, because last year the baton was handed over to us from Jackie. But I've also done events abroad as well on Ardbeg Day in various different countries around the world, and I think that's what I love the most about it, is the interpretation of the theme, as it were. So the theme is always rooted in a liquid truth or an Islay truth in some way, shape or form, and how we get to that point is, once we've decided on what the liquid we're going to offer up for that year is, we then sit down with the brand team, the likes of Gemma, describe to them exactly what it is we've got in the glass, the tasting notes, why we decided to do it, which we'll get on to when I get around to the tasting. And then from that, then we go away and have a couple of workshops and try to sort of throw around what sort of themes that could be created from it. And we try to incorporate definitely a little bit of Islay in that, and maybe a little bit of where the destination is, which we have done in this instance, which it being Sicily. And if you look back through the back catalogue of Ardbeg days, we've had all sorts of themes and different things. We've gone from space themes right the way through to sort of kelpies and these sort of mysterious creatures that come out of the water. We've had an archaeological digging in bogs and a whole host of fun had. And so the idea being is that we give the guys out in market then the opportunity to throw events and take the guidelines and hopefully have a gigantic Ardbeg party and incorporate a lot of fun. And as I said earlier on, bring a little bit of Islay and the spirit of Islay to wherever they are in the world. So it's always excellent fun. And I know many of you have been. I can see a few of the comments there. It's quite a difficult place to get to, but it's well worth the visit, even if it's not for the week of Ardbeg, for the fèis, as it were. Any time of year, it's worth the pilgrim, because it's just a magical place to visit.
Yeah, it's very much a place, for me, Ardbeg's a place of expect the unexpected. I am honoured this year to be going to the festival, but I won't be there for Ardbeg Day, unfortunately. So we'll hopefully catch up if you're about.
Yeah, what day are you going over?
I'm going over on the Monday and I'm back on the Thursday.
Oh, I go over on the Thursday. You might come in on the flight and I go out on, probably.
Yeah,
we'll have to wait for the glass.
Possibly. I'm taking the ferry over so I can take a few places off and bring a few bottles back.
Well, that's a good idea, because that's the other thing that people do a lot of, is purchase a considerable amount of whiskey. So by going by ferry, you can take it all back easily. So yeah, good plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I saw there was a comment from, I think it was Sean earlier on, saying he's going over next year, end of May. So I would say book your accommodation now, Sean, because it books up very, very quickly. But you will probably be in line for an Islay festival visit, and it is magical. I still remember the first time I went to Ardbeg, and there was this just incredible piece of theatre. It would have been about 15 years ago, so it was before brands kind of got quirky, and I think Ardbeg was one of the first that kind of led that kind of quirky side of things. And I just remember a lobster pot being pulled, and it had the bottle of Ardbeg and glasses in it, and I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. So there is always an element of expect the unexpected with Ardbeg. Now let's talk about whiskey making with Ardbeg. We caught up at the end of last year and we spoke about Glenmorangie. And obviously the intricacies and the delicacies behind that wonderful sister brand of Ardbeg. How different is it to work with peat? Is there a different approach that you take? Is there different things you need to do to balance the spirit? Give us a wee bit of an overview of what it's like to work with Ardbeg. I think it's very privileged to have the hat of both Glenmorangie and Ardbeg, and I like to have both still, because they're at opposite ends of the flavour spectrum as well. But there are commonalities as well, certainly when it comes to the sort of meticulous attention to detail and our obsession with quality. So that spreads across both brands. But yes, it is a completely different beast. And the peat obviously has a huge influence on the overall flavour of the whiskey in the glass. I've got a bottle of 10 here, never leave home without it. So I've got a little dram of it here to compare to Dolce when we get around to it. And it is different
with respect to, there's obviously all those medicinal flavors. You've got all those sort of smoky bonfire flavors, that sort of coal flavors, and like all those sort of smoked fish flavors as well. But I think the key thing that Ardbeg's about is that balance, and that's from the peaty paradox and the purifier that we've got on our spirit still. So I think a lot of people, if they've never tried Ardbeg before, are almost like, they've got this sort of psychological thing built up in their head about, oh my God, it's going to be really overpowering. It's going to be really strong. I'm not going to like it. But when they actually get to taste it, they realize how sweet it is for a start, how complex it is, and how many other flavors there are in there. And that complexity really does come from that little bit of extra distillation that we have on the spirit still. Ardbeg 10 is wholly matured in bourbon casks, so that's a common theme that we have alongside Glenmorangie original, which is all 100% as well. And again, that's down to we believing allowing the spirit to shine at its brightest, and allowing there to be changes in the cask, which there are inevitably going to be. There's going to be additions, subtraction reactions going on, further interactions and chemicals forming, and new compounds being created. But we still have that distillery character there. It's not overpowered by huge, flavour notes from other casks. So that's our stalwart Ardbeg 10, and that's kind of the benchmark that we use to then pivot when we're trying to do anything different. And Ardbeg Day is an opportunity, alongside the committee releases and other things we've done in the past, to look for different ways of presenting Ardbeg, and whether that be through different cask types, which is what we've gone for this year, or sometimes it's through primary production options as well. For the likes of last year, for example, when we did Smoky Verse, where we changed around, we did a high gravity mash. But we've done other examples of front end production as well, where we've changed the mash bill, the barley mash bill. We've actually disconnected the purifier just to prove once and for all that does have an effect. When we did heavy vapors, I always think of our own we always have an internal nickname for it within our team. So I always think of that first before I think of what the final name of the bottle was. So that one was called Big and Chunky, if you're interested. So that was some we've done in the past. So yeah, Ardbeg Day presents us with an opportunity then to go a little bit different and a little bit alternative, let's say, which brings us maybe nicely onto this year's dram, which is Ardbeg Dolce. So I'm just going to pull myself a dram.
Am I right in thinking back in the day, Galileo was also Marsala finished?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So I think it's maybe a good for those kind of vintage Ardbeg fans that are tuned in. I include myself in that as well. Galileo was one of my favourites. What was the difference in the casks here, and how how would you describe this versus that, I suppose?
Yeah, certainly. So Galileo was something that we released back in, I think it was 2013, maybe it was. And that was all to celebrate the return of the liquid that we sent up to space, the International Space Station. So in 2011, we sent up to the International Space Station these tiny little vials of liquid that, when cracked, mixed with wood shavings, and allowed us at microgravity, while these were going around the world on the International Space Station, to study the difference between something that had been matured up in near zero gravity conditions versus Ardbeg, because we had a control down on Earth as well. And so when that returned down, the amount of liquid we had was absolutely minuscule. So we couldn't do a bottling of that, unfortunately. That would have been amazing to have done, but it wouldn't have been classed as whiskey either. So we couldn't have called it Scotch. But we did release Galileo. So for Galileo, that was a relatively aged stock, I might say, although we didn't have an age statement on it. And it was mostly casks that had been finished in Marsala wine. Whereas this one itself has been, the casks that we've used for the Marsala wine here, they've had their entire life. So from new make spirit right the way through to the point which we've selected them for bottling now. So the difference being, we've had experience with Marsala casks. We know how well it worked before, but we were interested to see what the entire maturation would give versus what we did before with Galileo with the finish. It does also contain a small amount of classically matured bourbon cask as well, but only a very small quantity. So the majority of it, the heart of it, as we often say, has been wholly matured in these Marsala wine casks. And if I just hold up my 2 glasses I've got here, you can see the difference in colour for a start between the two. So this one being Ardbeg 10, wholly matured in bourbon, and this one with a much richer, darker colour, and the influence of the Marsala cask is clearly evident there as well. And that's before you get on to nosing and the inevitable tasting as well. So yeah, it's different in that respect. The Marsala wine casks themselves, sort of why we chose them, and like the interest behind them, really. We've obviously done various different types of cask releases in the past, where we've balanced the peat with the sweet elements. We know that works really, really well. Yeah. But the Marsala casks themselves have also got this, they've got that sweetness in them. And we actually chose to use the sweetest type of Marsala that you can get, which is the Dolce cask, hence the name. And so they're not only dripping in the sweetness from the fortified wine that's been sitting in those casks for at least sort of 2.5 years. But it was really the fact that it was an island, we're an island, there was that sort of Mediterranean sort of salinity as well, the fact that it would have been matured near the sea, obviously like Ardbeg as well. So there was, there's enough synergy there and a lot of likeness that we really liked about it itself. So that was a bit more of an attraction to us as well, just to see how it would mature in its entirety.
It rarely rains on Ardbeg Day on Islay.
You're going to curse it now, aren't you?
Well, look, I've had the pleasure a few times, and it hasn't rained.
It's been beautiful, yes.
Fingers crossed we can get that Sicilian style sunshine. Mm-hmm. For those of you at home that have your bottle, this is a good time to crack it, Gillian. If you could walk us through. I still remember, because as I said, this doesn't come out here for 2 weeks. Like Australia, I know the time zones are different, but you're not 2 weeks ahead, so I'm a bit jealous. But I've still got a little bit of a sample from the first time we went through this together in the office. And for me, the thing I love about this whiskey, and maybe you can talk to this, is on the nose you get all that sweetness, but see, when I added a spot of water, it became just classic Ardbeg, and it had this real kind of lovely kind of olive salty brininess, and it was the two worlds, I think, coming together perfectly with that little bit of a water addition. So do you want to lead us through a wee nosing and tasting of?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, you broke up a little bit there, Craig. So at this point, I might be the only one left if everyone's internet completely crashes out. But yeah, certainly. So as you mentioned, on the nose, there is the inevitable sweetness factor in there, and that's what you're detecting as those sort of dried fruits that very much are associated with Marsala wine anyway. I think we've written in the notes, there's quite a lot of like sticky dates and like stewed apple, almost like what you get at the bottom of an apple crumble or something like that really sweet stewed apple. But yes, it's rich, it's complex. You can definitely get the smoky notes in there. You'll get more if you do add a couple of drops of water. But the sort of the sweet and the salty and the smoke has all been like intertwined together. It's all sort of wrapped up together. And we've got a lot of the Sicilian lemons in there as well, and oranges, and I think that's heavily featured on the packaging. I don't know how many lemons are incorporated on the pack in total, but that's certainly something that you can definitely get in there, and that's very much associated with what you'd think of when you were thinking of a sort of Sicilian sort of street or something like that, So yeah, it's glorious on the nose and inviting, and it's drawing you in. I can add a couple of drops of water, just because mine actually is at a ridiculous strength of 59.1%, but that's because it's the one they sent me for approval. The bottle strength itself is at 47.8%, so it's still a very decent strength. Yeah. Obviously non-chill filtered, non-coloured, because we never do that with Ardbeg, so everything in there is completely natural. So I'm going to add a couple of drops just to see if it brings out anything else. And I think when you add a couple of drops of water, you get a bit more of those sort of nutty aromas maybe. You get the bit more of that classic in there as well, a bit more of that pine, that sort of herbal note, the pine resin, and like that salinity that I mentioned earlier on. It's definitely there with like you get that in Ardbeg 10 with like the sort of the smoked fish element and the sort of salty sea spray, but you get that in here as well. There's like a capers or an olive briny sort of you know, like the olive brine that the olives come in, so you can sort of pick that up as well. So I can have a little bit of a taste.
And everyone.
And as you roll it round your palate and inhale afterwards, I mean, there's no doubting that this isn't anything but an Ardbeg. Instantly on the inhale afterwards, it's like an assault of the senses where you get more smoke than you can probably ever imagine. So it is definitely a punchy one. It's no hiding. But it's been matched beautifully with this backup then of these sweet flavors that just roll in afterwards. I mentioned earlier on that we chose the sweetest of the 3 types of Marsala that you can get. And again, we knew that would work so well with the smoke. But you get quite a lot of like spices in there as well, sort of dancing along your tongue. You get that cinnamon, a bit of aniseed in there. But there's so much of that apricot raisin. You get more of that lemon rind, a bit of honeycomb in there. And again, you get a tiny bit of that sort of salted, nutty flavor as well. So it's divine.
It's extremely complex. Seen here, Linda's getting apple pie. I think that's a great shout. Troy's asking what Tim Tam you'd pair with this dram. I think this as a flavour of Tim Tam on its own would be fantastic. But have you got any thoughts on that?
I love a Tim Tam. We get very few varieties of flavours over here, though, comparatively to you. So I'm not sure how vast the Tim Tam like range is over there. I would say anything with a dark chocolate one would work exceptionally well with this. Something that's going to sort of play nicely or go opposite to the sweetness. I think Marsala itself is used as an aperitif, and it's also used a bit as a dessert one. I think they pair it quite well with a few cheeses as well. Now, I doubt there's a cheese flavoured Tim Tam, but nearly one of my big weaknesses isn't chocolate, will be cheese. So definitely pairing this with a quite a strong cheese would work really well, I think, too. So, yeah.
I think if our members can get onto that and give us some feedback about which cheese works best with this, that would be great. A cracking question here as well. Sam's asking about cask influence. So obviously these are matured exclusively in these sweet Marsala casks. But you know, how often were you monitoring that? Did you have an idea going in? Like, was there any way that you thought, or was there any indication from the start where you thought this is going to be X amount of time, or was it very much a case of continuing monitoring and deciding?
Yeah, well, it varies really. So we've got great cask suppliers, and we really do get offered some exceptional casks. So when they arrive just at the distillery, we obviously have the opportunity to inspect them, nose them as well. So every cask is nosed individually before it's filled. So at that point, you can kind of gauge how strong the flavour is or how much of the influence is there. But of course, you're only getting really what's the air and the headspace that's in there. Obviously, a lot of the Marsala and a lot of the flavour is drenched into the wood as well. So what we do is we fill it in, obviously, for 3 years. It's not even whiskey, so we probably won't even look at it before then. But what we'll do is we'll probably dip our toe in the water and have a little bit of a smattering of a sample around about the 5-year-old mark, just to see where we are. And at that point, then we can gauge, whoa, there's already a lot on there, or there's not, or there isn't enough on there, in which case we know that we can leave it another few years before dipping our toe in again and having another little look. And then, so we just then decide at each point that we monitor it how soon after we want to revisit it, whether it's then down to a couple of months or whether it's down to, oh no, we've still got another 2-3 years because these ones actually aren't as strong as we thought they were going to be. So yeah, but we do monitor them, but probably from sort of 5 years up the way, really. Slightly different if we're doing a like moving casks that are ready mature into wood. Again, it depends on what it is they're going into, and almost the gauge of them once they've arrived on site as to how strong we think they are or not. But it's a good fun thing to do. So we often like to go and have a little send Duggar into the warehouse. There, that's Yogi, I think, on the screen there now. But we send the boys into the warehouse to send us over some samples. And then we can decide whether we want to do it wholly as that, or do we want to add in a few classic bourbons as well. So we do play around quite a bit on the bench as well, looking at a few options. And we use our internal sensory panel as well. Sometimes if we narrow it down to like 2 or 3 recipes, we put it out to our internal panel and just ask them a series of questions, whether it's can they pick out a difference? And if they can't, then we can go with any one of the 3. Or is it a matter of, do they have a preference overall out of them all versus our Ardbeg 10 as well? So we do a lot of sort of internal debating, let's say.
Here's the question that's on everyone's lips. It's not come up in the comments yet, but how did I become part of that panel?
Oh, well, you have to come work for us for a start. So first of all, get a job with us, and then so we put it out and we recruit into it, and every couple of years, so you get a little bit of turnover of folk leaving as well. There's about 27 people on the panel. There's 6 of us in our team, and we do the majority of it, but then we use the wider panel for a number of different things. And to get on the panel, what we do is every couple of years, we do a little recruitment session where we lay out a whole host of little miniature pots, and anyone in the company can put themselves forward to do so, and come in and we'll ask them to go through the pots and write down what they think they can detect. And then we give them a couple of different other tasting tests as well, like sugar, salty, and different degrees of those sorts of things. And then depending on how they score, we then let them on the panel or not. So there's lots of people who want to be on the panel, desperate to be on the panel, but aren't.
Fair enough. You've got to make sure that you're getting the right answers.
Well, but also it's a good way for us to broaden the population of people who are nosing and tasting, which is the reality, is the key, because everyone here on the call now will have their own interpretation of it. Even though I've guided them through the tasting here, there's a whole host of other things that other people will be picking up that I won't be, depending on sensitivities, people's preferences, whether they can name it as well. That's often a hard part of the process, is recalling it and actually naming the flavour as well. It's good fun. We have a lot of debate and some comedy capers as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important part in this role with the Whisky Club and in my previous whisky making roles as well. Just making sure that you're not in your own little echo chamber, and that there's people from outside that are giving you, useful feedback, not just on the technicalities of the whisky, but because I would argue that the best whiskies are imperfect. Those are the things that you remember, the little quirks that aren't just quite technically there.
Make them different.
Out, right?
Yeah.
Now here's a cracking question. Ian is desperate to cross the streams between Ardbeg and Glenmorangie, and he's asking, have you done much with chocolate malt with Ardbeg? He thinks that would be a really good addition to this.
A good combo. Yeah, we have not done chocolate malt directly, but we have done another dark malt. So we'd used black malt, which is even darker than chocolate malt. So we went to the extreme because it was Ardbeg, and that's kind of where you need to go sometimes with Ardbeg, because the new make, if you compare Glenmorangie new make and Ardbeg new make, they are poles apart. And Ardbeg new make packs a punch. So if you're going to put something, again up against it and change something in the process leading up to creating that, you need to go big or go home a lot of the time. So what we did there was we introduced black malt into the mash bill alongside our standard malt, and we had it in a quite a high ratio as well, much higher than actually we do for Signet and Glenmorangie. And that did have a big effect. So instantly when we did then process it through the distillery and get to the new make, we could instantly see that it was very different. It was really sort of bitter and sort of crumbly almost in nature, and sort of, well, it's the stuff that you use to make stouts. So think of those sorts of flavors almost. And that's what then eventually, once matured, we chose to mature that in quite neutral casks. So bourbon casks, mostly second fill bourbon casks. So that actually became Ardcore, which was one of the Ardbeg releases we did a number of years ago, where we all dressed up as punks and rocked out to a load of songs. So that was Ardcore. So we have played around with various mash bills So I'm going to seal my lips at this point before I give anything away.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, Ramon's got a question here about ABVs. He's wondering in terms of how you decide that. I think from my side, I would say, Ramon, a really good experiment is to add a drop of water, taste, add another drop of water, taste, and see how ABV changes. Because 0.1% is a massive flavour difference. But I guess the question that he wants to address, the elephant in the room, is how much do your accountants have a say in the ABV, and how much is it flavour driven by yourself?
Well, as you see, we get everything into us straight from the cask, as it were, or vat strength, as it were. So when we get our samples from the cask that Duggar or Yogi or one of the other guys or gals in the warehouse sends over to us, they're all at cask strength. So that's where we start. Obviously, we very rarely go before 46. We've only done it once, really, for our Ardbeg 17-year-old, but we never go below 46. So that's kind of our perimeter that we can play within. And it then just comes down to the experiments on the bench that we do. So again, depending on what it is that we're trying to create that's different and how it lands on your palate and the sort of sensations that you have first when you approach the glass, and then second when you taste it. Sometimes when you approach the glass and it's, very strong, if it's in a very neutral cask, a bit maybe like a bourbon, then you're going to get more of the sting maybe of the alcohol, versus something like this, which has been almost masked a little bit and softened ever so slightly by the type of cask that we've used here. So depending on what the experiment is we're doing, or what the whiskey is giving us in the glass, we then start to play around. So we get to play around with either combining different types of casks together, and sometimes that has an effect whereby we can then leave it at a higher strength. And then what we then do is we then play around with the strength. So once we kind of decided on the one or two possible recipes that we are interested in, like I mentioned earlier on, we put those out to the panel, but we also put those out to the panel sometimes at different strengths as well, just to see if there's a preference. Because again, is it that more flavors sing at a certain level versus others, Yeah. So we do play around with it a fair bit, and then we just pass on the strength that we want it to be forward, as it were, as our recommendation. And then that's generally what goes on the bottle in the end. Yeah,
fair enough. That's it's when this is, it's not just with Ardbeg releases or Glenmorangie releases. Basically, any time the Whisky Club panel is thinking about a whiskey, ABV is a huge part of our consideration. That's why many of our bottles have a point something. It's not just a 43 or a 46 or a 48, unless the whiskey absolutely benefits from that strength. It's a huge privilege for us to be able to work with yourself, with the whiskey makers, to decide where, we think the ABV sits best, and it tends to be a wee bit higher. Basically because we don't let our accountant see the sums for it, but it does make sense.
Have to do with everything the better sometimes.
Now, speaking of higher strength, Caleb has a great question. It's surrounding this. This was obviously a big milestone for Ardbeg this year. You guys gave us what we wanted, the cask strength 10-year-old.
Supersonic cask strength 10-year-old as well. It was like very high. Yeah.
It's absolutely phenomenal. Is that going to become a core range? That's the question.
Oh, I bet everyone would love that. I bet they would. I don't know. I mean, I can't confirm or deny. No. It's something I think that was championed and asked for and campaigned for, I think, over, so many years, that we kind of had to relent and give the opportunity. And certainly at that strength, that 61.7 was, because we used a certain proportion of casks that have been filled at high strength to hit that number as well. It certainly wouldn't be possible to probably do it at that strength continually. But it has been received exceptionally well. At the moment, though, our lovely Ardbeg is still going to remain at 46, as far as I'm aware, at any rate. But it's not to say we won't do a couple of different releases of that in the future, but who knows? Never say never, but also I can't say either way at the moment, because I don't know if there is any plans for that currently. So
yeah, fair enough. I mean, yeah, there you go. You just shattered Caleb's dreams and my
yeah,
own.
apologies, Caleb.
Luckily, I bought two. I've got an open one next door, and that's my backup bottle.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Very, very happy with that. There was another question that I just want to address, and then we'll round up. There was a question about, who was it? I think it was Sean. He was basically asking how much work we are doing together, and can we expect to see a Whisky Club collaboration in the future? And all I can say is we are in discussions. I won't take it any further than that, but we love Ardbeg at the club. We know our members love Ardbeg, and hopefully you enjoy these things and working with us, Gillian.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, finding those little pockets of stock and finding those stories and everything else is obviously the reason that the club exists. And and to be able to do that with yourself and with such a brand would obviously be a huge privilege. So all I'll say is watch this space. I can't really give any more away than that. Another final bit of housekeeping. Sam Osborne, your comments and questions today have been fantastic. So you're getting next month's Whisky of the Month on us. So the guys behind the scenes will be in touch to organise that for you. And then Gillian, I think just finally, I suppose a good question to end on. If money was no object and you could do whatever you liked with Ardbeg, you know, what's your ultimate Ardbeg release? What's the age, the cask? You know, give us an idea of if all the shackles were off, what would you do?
I think it'd be very interesting to get some form of like experimental smoker type thing put in for the malt. I think that would be super good to have a small experimental sort of style of maltings, basically, that we could trial out a whole host of fun and wacky and weird things. That would be certainly definitely on my list. With regard to anything else, I might have to have a little think about that, to be honest. I mean, I don't think that there's currently anything that I haven't already done that hasn't already happened. Because yeah, we're pretty much in a sort of a good position that we can, you know, with enough good reason behind it, sort of persuade the powers that be to kind of do what we want most of the time. So that's a good fortunate position to be in. I'll have a little think about that, and maybe next time I'm on, you can re-ask it to me, and hopefully I'll remember at that point. Yeah, I can't think of anything specifically other than putting in a little, well, not little, it must be a fair size, but some like quite quirky things. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, playing with smoke, absolutely. Well, just before we round off, for those watching, as I said, this doesn't come out here for another 2 weeks. So if you want to make me even more jealous and infuriated, there are a handful of bottles left online. So if you want to grab a second bottle, or if you didn't manage to get in on the first dibs, feel free to go into your account and add one of the remaining ones. If it is sold out, we might be able to get some more sent over from Isla, but you're going to have to wait for me to get mine over here first. But absolute pleasure as always, Gillian. Cannot wait
no
to
problem.
catch up with
It's
you
a
again.
pleasure. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry. Can't wait to catch up with you again. Hopefully, cross paths on the on Isla. I don't know how late I'm staying on the Thursday, but I might see you as you get off the ferry. But yeah, from myself, everyone at the club, thank you for your time, and especially biggest thanks to all the members that tune in and those that grabbed the bottle of Ardbeg Dolce before me.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Guys.
Cheers, everyone, and we'll see you all next time. Slán.
Take care. Bye bye. Slán.